Good afternoon and welcome to this United Kingdom and Nicaragua COVID-19 agroecology and food sovereignty meeting organised by the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign. This is our first ever online webinar and it gives us the great pleasure of being able to bring together Fausto Torres, Erika Takeo and Ruth Hancock from our various parts of the globe. So just to explain a little bit about the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign, it was founded in 1979 and the aims of the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign are to work in solidarity with Nicaraguan organisations and social movements, fighting for social and economic justice by promoting and seeking support for their activities in the United Kingdom. My name is Julie Lamin. I am an EC member of the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign. I was inspired by the revolution in 1979, but I didn't, and I visited in 1987, but I returned 3 years ago on a teacher exchange because my background's in secondary English teaching. So that's how I come to be here. But in preparing for this meeting this afternoon, I gave thought to my very own background. My roots are in the North Welsh Hills, two centuries of my family farming the same land in North Wales, in the mountains there. And it's made me think that this afternoon, I can't go to Wales because of the lockdown, and neither can my Welsh relatives travel because of COVID-19. But this afternoon, we've got the pleasure of being connected with Nicaragua and Ruth in Devon. And I think we'll find that this is a meeting where we realise just how important agriculture and our rural background is, and the key workers who are there feeding us all. So they will say more about that. So some quick housekeeping items. On your panel, there is a Q&A session at the button at the bottom. So if you wish to submit questions through that Q&A box, please do. There will be time at the end of the meeting for some questions. And the webinar will be recorded so that you can watch it afterwards, and please share with your contacts. So as I said, we're bringing together two speakers from the grassroots worker-led organisations in the UK and Nicaragua, and with Erika as well translating for us. And this is part of a global movement called Via Campesina, which it translates as the peasants' way, or the way of rural workers. And it's an international movement of 200 million peasants, rural workers in 81 countries, representing 182 organisations. That's one powerful organisation made up of peasants, small-scale farmers, and agricultural workers' unions. And this afternoon, they'll be sharing their perspectives on both the local and international struggles for food sovereignty and the importance of international solidarity. And I think, you know, there's a lot of us in this COVID pandemic. We have the people who've been working behind the scenes that we've probably never taken much notice of, have become our key workers. And this is the hour we really need to realise that our key workers are those involved in the rural economy. So this afternoon is going to be something really important, both for our well-being and survival after the pandemic, and in an even bigger scale, our very own planet. So it's we've got some important messages this afternoon. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Fausto Torres. Fausto is the Secretary of International Relations of the Asociación de Trabajadores del Campo, which we know in English as the ATC, the Rural Workers Association. And Fausto coordinates the operating secretariat of the Latin American Coordination of Rural Organisations, known as CLOC, CLOC, and this is part of Via Campesina. At his side, Erika Takeo will be translating from the Spanish for us, Fausto. And Erika is the coordinator of Friends of the ATC, and part of the technical team of the International Relations Secretariat in the ATC. Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign collaborates very closely with the Friends of the ATC on different solidarity projects in relation to the ATC, and the Latin American Institute of Agroecology in Nicaragua. And finally, speaking to us from East Devon, we have Ruth Hancock, who founded and has been the lead grower at Fresh and Green for 18 years, which is based on a 12-acre mixed farm, as I say, in East Devon. And she's been a land worker all her working life and is a member of the Landworkers Alliance coordinating group. So present the panel to you this afternoon, and we'll begin with Fausto Torres and Erika Takeo translating, interpreting. Thank you.
Muy buenos días y buenas tardes y buenas noches para algunos compañeros y compañeras.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to some of our comrades.
Voy a empezar presentando lo que es la ATC, Club Via Campesina, los IALAS y qué vamos a hacer con la pandemia.
So I'm going to present today about the ATC, the Club and Via Campesina, the IALAS, and what we're doing today facing the pandemic.
No sin antes agradecer este esfuerzo que están haciendo ustedes desde la parte norte de Europa.
And the first thing I want to do is thank this grand effort that you're all making from the northern part of Europe to make this space.
Muy bien, la Asociación de Trabajadores del Campo.
So the Rural Workers Association.
Ponemos al inicio la imagen de Sandino, de Carlos, los trabajadores en la reforma agraria y la ATC.
We have here the pictures of Sandino, Carlos Fonseca, farm workers, and the ATC.
Muy bien. En la historia de lo que nosotros conocemos como los movimientos sociales,
in the history of social movements,
la ATC participa en dos momentos.
The ATC participates in two moments.
Primer momento en la lucha contra la dictadura somocista.
The first moment is the struggle against the Somozan dictatorship.
Y en el segundo momento contra la agresión imperialista.
And the second moment is against the imperialist aggression.
Nos tocó estar en la etapa anti-neoliberal también.
We also lived through the anti-neoliberal time.
Y ahora acompañando a nuestro buen gobierno del comandante Daniel Ortega y la compañera Rosario.
And now we are accompanying our good government led by the commander Daniel Ortega and the compañera Rosario Murillo.
Muy bien. ¿Cuándo surge la ATC?
So how is the ATC born?
La ATC surge en 1975.
Born in 1975.
En los departamentos de Carazo, Managua y Masaya y Chinandega.
In the departments of Carazo, Masaya, Managua, and Chinandega.
Y esto en los años 1977 a 1979, en donde se incorpora a la lucha contra la dictadura de Somoza.
So from 1977 to 1979, the ATC is incorporated in different tasks to put an end to the Somozan dictatorship.
La ATC organiza la parte campesina durante la guerra y durante la lucha histórica.
So the ATC has always organized the peasantry during the war and throughout this historic struggle.
Entonces, en la Revolución Sandinista nosotros trabajamos los 10 años.
So during the Sandinista Revolution, the ATC worked throughout the full 10 years.
Y ahí, como ustedes pueden ver en la lámina, de 1979 al 90, trabajamos el tema de la reforma agraria.
So as you can see here on this slide, from 1979 until 1990, the ATC worked on the agrarian reform.
Y los derechos de los trabajadores del campo.
As well as the rights for farm workers.
Y después logramos defender las conquistas revolucionarias.
After that, we worked on defending the gains of the revolution.
Y organizamos lo que en la década de los 80 se llamó las fuerzas fundamentales de la revolución.
Then during the 1980s, we organized what is called the fundamental forces of the revolution.
Después, durante la década de los 90 hasta el 2005,
So then we lived through a time period of the 1990s until 2006.
fuimos parte de la lucha contra el neoliberalismo
We were part of the struggle against neoliberalism.
y luchamos por mantener las reivindicaciones alcanzadas en la revolución.
And so our struggle there was to maintain all of these different gains that were achieved during the revolutionary period.
Y en ese tiempo nos corresponde ser parte de la fundación de la Via Campesina.
And in this time period, we were part of the founding of La Via Campesina.
Hemos cumplido 28 años,
We have now, we're now 28 years old.
porque la Via Campesina, la idea nace aquí en Managua en 1992.
So the idea to create La Via Campesina was actually born here in Managua, in Nicaragua, in 1992.
Con campesinos de diferentes partes del mundo.
That meeting took place with peasants from different parts of the world.
Y también nace la CLOC,
The CLOC was also born at this time.
la Coordinadora Latinoamericana de Organizaciones del Campo es la Vía Campesina de América Latina.
The Latin American Coordination of Rural Organizations, or CLOC, is the expression of La Via Campesina in Latin America.
Para ser de la Vía Campesina hay que ser miembro de la CLOC.
To be a part of Via Campesina here, you also have to be a member of the CLOC.
Siguiendo con el tema de la ATC, ¿cómo nos organizamos?
So to continue with the topic of ACC, how do we organize?
A través de sindicatos,
We have unions,
cooperativas,
cooperatives.
fortalecemos el movimiento de mujeres campesinas,
We continue to strengthen the peasant women's movement,
movimiento de jóvenes en el campo,
also the peasant youth movement,
las mutualidades del campo, mutuas del campo,
also the
mutualidad.
yeah, there's a thing here called mutuas, which is basically an
Mutua es una cooperativa también, una especie de cooperativa.
yeah, it's a type of cooperative based upon mutual support.
Y trabajamos también con el tema de los afectados, del tema de la tierra, los afectados que han sido afectados históricamente.
We also organize ways to support people who have been affected by different issues on the land.
Trabajamos en el medio ambiente laboral
We also work on working environments, labor environments,
y con las escuelas campesinas.
and with our peasant schools.
Son como los puntos generales en los que trabaja la Vía Campesina.
These are kind of the general points that we work on.
Ahora entra la parte internacional.
Now, to talk about the international piece.
Bueno, dije que aquí nació la Vía Campesina, se constituye después en Mons, Bélgica, y a partir de ahí ya tenemos 28 años de trabajar.
So the first meeting was here, then Via Campesina was formally created in Belgium, and now we have 28 years of working as Via Campesina.
Es el más importante movimiento social que tenemos en el mundo.
This is the most important social movement that we have in the world.
Estamos en todos los continentes
We're in all of the continents,
y tenemos la misma agenda.
and we share the same agenda.
Ahí tengo los logotipos, pero ahora paso a la parte.
So we just showed quickly the logos, but now we're going to go to the next
¿Por
slide.
qué nace la Vía Campesina?
Why does Via Campesina emerge?
Primero porque había que romper con la ruptura de la dependencia económica.
First, to break off from economic dependence,
Y había que dar forma a la soberanía alimentaria,
and also to give life to food sovereignty,
con la premisa de que había que producir alimentos.
with under the premise of the importance of growing
Y
food,
el pueblo que no produce ni lo que se come no es libre.
and a people that doesn't grow or produce what it eats will never be free.
También teníamos que enfrentar el capital financiero
We also had to confront financial capital
y crear una economía social económicamente viable, ecológica y ambientalmente sostenible.
create a social economy that's also economically viable and ecologically sustainable.
Y eso es la agricultura campesina.
And this is peasant agriculture.
Bueno, la Vía Campesina desarrolló movimientos mundiales contra la Organización Mundial del Comercio,
So Via Campesina has developed very strong movements against the World Trade Organization.
Y toda su lucha contra las transnacionales, contra los derechos humanos y por la agroecología.
And a lot of strong movements against transnational corporations for human rights and for agroecology.
¿Cómo luchamos?
So how do we struggle?
Empezamos por una verdadera revolución agraria.
Well, we have to start with organizing a true agrarian revolution.
Porque no solo estamos en los países de América Latina.
We're not just in countries of Latin America.
Tenemos trabajos en África,
We work in Africa,
en Asia,
Asia,
Estados Unidos,
the United States,
Canadá,
Canada,
y también estamos en Europa.
and we're also in Europe.
Ahí tenemos la sede en Bruselas, pero ahí está la presencia en Francia, Inglaterra, Bélgica, Alemania, etc.
So the regional seat is in Brussels, but we also have work in France, in England, in Germany, etc.
Nos hace falta trabajar más a nivel mundial para levantar la Europa Oriental.
One pending task is the importance of strengthening our organizing in the eastern part of Europe.
Sí, la Europa después del muro de Berlín.
So the Europe that exists after the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Ya tenemos avance bastante.
We've been advancing on this.
Además de eso, nuestra tarea principal, la lucha por la tierra.
So our principal task is the struggle for land.
Y también entender que hay que producir alimentos detrás de la cosmovisión del campo.
And also that we need to be growing food based upon a cosmovision of the countryside.
Y también trabajar los mercados campesinos.
Also to develop different peasant or farmers markets.
Depende de la región.
Depending on the region.
Nosotros quisimos crear aquí, lo hicimos el ALBA.
Here we have ALBA,
Alternativa Bolivariana de las Américas.
which is the Bolivarian alternative for the Americas.
Contra la agresión de los Estados Unidos con la alternativa de capitalista.
Which is an alternative to the U.S. Capitalist version.
Pero esta parte ha avanzado mucho en varias partes del planeta, del mundo.
This topic is also advanced in many other parts of the world.
He visitado Europa y he visto campesinos vendiendo en las ciudades.
I've also visited Europe and seen many peasants selling their products in the city.
Necesitamos fortalecer esa economía popular.
We need to strengthen and continue to strengthen this popular economy.
Me voy a referir ahora
I'm going to talk now about
a 10 temas centrales en Vía Campesina.
10 central topics in Via Campesina.
Primero es el aumento el aumento del fascismo, que es avanzado a nivel de los países de América Latina.
The first thing is the increase in fascism, which has advanced a lot in different countries of Latin America.
Han disminuido las políticas agrarias y de agricultura.
There's also been a decrease in different agrarian and agricultural policies.
Se ha profundizado la crisis política.
There's also been a deepening of the political crisis.
Y económica y ambiental.
It's also a deepening of the economic and environmental crisis.
O sea que ha aumentado la pobreza.
So the poverty has increased.
Y aumenta la riqueza.
But wealth has also increased.
En los sectores, en los sectores más ricos.
But this wealth has been for the rich.
Entonces, además de eso, aumentó la crisis del modelo de la agricultura.
There was also an increase in the agricultural crisis.
El modelo hay un choque, los dos modelos.
Here we're seeing a clash between two models.
El modelo de la economía campesina.
There is the model which is the peasant model.
Contra el modelo del agronegocio.
And we also have the model of agribusiness.
Que ese es el que está ahorita manejando la economía de muchos países.
And this agribusiness model is the model that's controlling the economy of many, many countries.
Vivimos una amenaza de una guerra mundial
We also have this threat of another world war.
y han crecido otras tecnologías.
There's also been the growth of different kinds of new technologies.
Y los gobiernos en general son cómplices de las transnacionales.
Governments, in general, are accomplices of these transnational corporations.
Y hay un debilitamiento de las políticas públicas.
And there's been a weakening of many public policies.
Y hay mucho acaparamiento de tierra
There's also a lot of land grabbing taking place
y criminalización en la lucha por la tierra.
and criminalization of the struggle for land.
Los mercados financieros, más bien los mercados, hay una mercantilización del conocimiento.
There is a complete commercialization and privatization of knowledge.
Y tenemos un problema.
And we have a problem.
Ahí ese aumento de la criminalización.
There is an increase in criminalization.
Imagínense ustedes que en plena cuarentena
Imagine, everyone, that in the middle of quarantine,
van más de 200 asesinados en Colombia.
there's been more than 200 assassinations in Colombia,
Líderes campesinos asesinados.
assassinations of peasant leaders.
Mucha represión en El Salvador a los campesinos.
Lots of repression in El Salvador of peasants,
Una alta represión también en Honduras
a very strong repression in Honduras
y en
as well,
Guatemala.
and Guatemala.
Entonces, es curioso porque mientras hay cuarentena, también hay criminalización, hay malos gobiernos.
It's curious that during the quarantine, there's been an increase in criminalization.
Después de este mapeo de lo que ocurre en el mundo,
So after showing this kind of mapping of what's happening in the world,
aparece la pandemia.
the pandemic appears.
Y la pandemia nos muestra que hay una crisis del modelo
The pandemic shows us that we have a crisis in our model,
y tiene el planeta de rodillas.
and the world is on its knees.
Y solo hay dos grandes movimientos que salen.
There's just two movements that have come out of this.
Médicos y
One.
enfermeras
Doctors and nurses,
y después el sector campesino
and after that, the
Okay.
peasantry,
que produce alimentos.
which grows food.
¿Por qué fracasa este tema? El tema de la medicina, de los médicos. Porque les privatizaron la salud.
So why has this been such a disaster? Because the healthcare system and health has been completely privatized.
¿Por qué hay mejores resultados en Venezuela, Cuba y Nicaragua?
Why are we having better results in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua?
Porque tenemos salud comunitaria
Because we have community health models,
gratis para el pueblo.
which is free for all of the people.
Ahora nos falta trabajar el tema campesino.
Now we need to work on this, the peasant topic.
Voy a cerrar con este tema, claro.
So this is what I'm going to finish up with.
Cuando estábamos entonces hablando del tema central de la vía campesina frente a ese mapeo mundial,
So talking about the central work of Via Campesina facing this neoliberal model,
hay dos tareas centrales.
there's two central tasks.
Y es que concebimos la agroecología como un nuevo paradigma.
So we think of agroecology as a new paradigm.
Son prácticas y saberes del campo.
There are different practices, knowledges about the countryside.
No, también es político, es cultural.
It's also something that's political and cultural.
Son saberes campesinos.
These are peasant knowledges.
Y esto descansa sobre la soberanía alimentaria.
And this is all based upon food sovereignty.
Y esa es la clave para enfriar el planeta.
This is the link to be able to cool the planet.
Porque la soberanía alimentaria
Because food sovereignty
es una respuesta a la crisis
is a response to the crisis,
que enfrentan los pueblos campesinos en todo el mundo.
which is faced by peasant peoples around the world.
Y un llamado a la transformación sistémica de la agricultura campesina.
And it's also a call to systematically transform the food system globally.
Por eso la Vía Campesina ha priorizado, y la PC también, y la CLOC, y en todo el mundo tenemos priorizado la formación.
That's why the ACC, CLOC, and Via Campesina have put as one of their central priorities formation or training.
Y en el 2005, nosotros creamos los institutos agroecológicos latinoamericanos.
In 2005, we created the Latin American Institutes of Agroecology.
Pueden ver ustedes en el mapa,
You can see in the map, which is the next slide.
está a continuación ahí, la lista donde tenemos institutos agroecológicos.
So you can see here in the map that we have a list of where we have our agroecological institutes.
Ayer, ya estamos trabajando en Nicaragua en línea el Instituto Agroecológico Ichimuleo.
So right now in Nicaragua, we're working online with our IALA Ichimuleo.
Ichimuleo significa tierra de maíz en idioma maya.
So Ichimuleo means land of corn in the Mayan language.
Y los IALA entonces son una expresión de formación de campesinos.
So the IALAs are one expression of peasant training.
No estamos formando técnicos para ir a trabajar al Estado.
We're not training technicians that will then go and work for a government.
Ni para trabajar con el sector privado.
And we're also not training them to go and work for the private sector.
Estamos formando militantes
We are forming militants,
para fortalecer la agricultura en el campo.
which will go on to strengthen agriculture in the country.
Entonces tenemos YALA en Nicaragua para todo lo que es Mesoamérica, México, el Caribe y Centroamérica, y YALA en Nicaragua, Ichimuleo.
So the IALA Chimoleo here in Nicaragua is an IALA for all of Mesoamerica. We also include Mexico and the Caribbean.
Y el YALA que hicimos en Venezuela cuando estaba Chávez, que es el YALA para Paulo Freire.
The IALA that we created in Venezuela when Hugo Chavez was in power, which is called IALA Paulo Freire.
El YALA María Cano de Colombia.
We have the IALA María Cano in Colombia.
María Cano es una líder campesina que en los años 30 trabajó en solidaridad con Sandino desde Colombia.
So María Cano is a peasant leader who in the 1930s organized in solidarity with Sandino, but she was in Colombia.
Tenemos el YALA en la Amazonía de Brasil,
We have an IALA in the Amazon in Brazil.
en Paraguay,
We have another one in Paraguay.
en la Escuela Florestal,
We have the Florestan Fernandez School in Brazil.
en Paraná, Brasil,
We have another one in Paraná, Brazil.
en Argentina
We have another one in
y
Argentina
en Chile.
and one in Chile.
Las mujeres sembradoras de la esperanza.
This school is called Women Feeding Hope.
Entonces, el YALA, ya dije, es un espacio de construcción de una nueva cultura,
So as I said, IALA is a space for the construction of a new culture
porque pone en el camino la agroecología,
because it puts on its path the agroecology.
con un profundo conocimiento social y humano,
It's based on very profound social and human content,
que asume una pedagogía de campesino a campesino.
based upon a peasant-to-peasant pedagogy.
Es una formación integral,
It's a holistic formation,
pragmática,
pragmatic,
y que responde a las condiciones para mejorar los ingresos del pueblo.
It also responds to the needs or interests to improve the incomes of our people.
Es un excelente ejemplo que podrían ustedes visitar cuando pase la pandemia.
This is an excellent example that we hope you can all visit when the pandemic is over.
Ya para ir cerrando,
Okay, so now to conclude, to go about concluding,
en cualquier país del mundo estamos obligados como Vía Campesina a crear un sistema tradicional que es resiliente a la crisis.
so we are now obligated in all parts of the world to create a resilient system, a system resilient to facing this crisis.
Y ese manejo primero inicia por la biodiversidad,
This starts first with biodiversity,
mejorar el cultivo,
improving our crops,
más el consumo responsable,
also responsible
la
consumption,
producción ecológica,
and ecological production.
histórica, ancestral.
This is historic and ancestral production.
Esa es la única salida para la resiliencia a la crisis.
This is our only option for creating resiliency in this crisis.
Porque se basa en agroecosistemas que mejoran la calidad de la tierra y de la salud humana.
So this is because it's based on creating agroecosystems that improve both our quality of life and our health.
Por esa razón nosotros estamos llamando a un plan de emergencia que para volver al campo.
That's why we are currently implementing an urgency plan that's called Return to the Countryside.
Y hacer del campo es un sector habitable.
And make the countryside a livable place.
Necesitamos desarrollar un sistema alimentario accesible y sustentable.
We need to create an accessible and sustainable food system.
Fomentar la agricultura campesina.
Promote peasant agriculture.
Hacer del campo el lugar más lindo para vivir.
Make the countryside the most beautiful place to live.
Y también trabajar todo lo que es el acceso a los recursos para la producción.
Also make available all the kinds of different resources that are needed for farming.
A través de las políticas públicas.
This is achieved through public policy.
Y también hacer trabajar mejor la agricultura.
We also need to continue to improve our way that we work in agriculture.
Tiene que ser agroecológica.
It needs to be agroecological,
sostenible,
sustainable,
ambiental,
environmental,
económica y social.
and also needs to be economic and social.
Garantizar ese consumo que sea responsable.
Guarantee responsible consumption.
Y además el almacenar, distribuir, saber manejar la cadena agroalimentaria.
Also know how to manage the whole food chain, the different storage and distribution of food.
Después de la pandemia, la tarea central va a ser producir alimentos.
When the pandemic is over, the central task will be food production.
Sanos y saludables.
That are also healthy. That's also healthy food.
Y tengo un comentario final.
So I have a final comment.
Que dice que es el momento de potenciar la agricultura campesina.
So this is the moment to put into practice peasant agriculture.
Para ello es urgente trabajar las acciones del campo.
That's why it's really, really important to work with the wide range of actions in the countryside.
Y políticas públicas.
As well as public policies.
Para reconstruir las cadenas de distribución.
That will reconstruct the different distribution chains.
Reactivar los sistemas alimentarios.
Reactivate our food system.
Las tareas que debemos asumir desde la soberanía alimentaria para poder salir de la emergencia.
And the task that we have to take on based upon achieving food sovereignty and this plan, emergency plan to return to the countryside.
Nos corresponde a los campesinos la resiliencia de la crisis actual.
So it's up to us as peasants to achieve resilience in this actual moment.
Para enfriar el planeta.
In order to cool the planet.
Y defender la vida.
And defend life.
Ante una posible hambruna o escasez.
Facing potential hunger as well as scarcity.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fausto Torres and Erika Takeo, for translating. That was excellent and very illuminating. And I will take from that, a country that doesn't produce its own food is not free. What a great message. I would like to share with you a couple of greetings. Thank you for organising this event, and the link, someone's asked about the link for the recording after the event. If you've signed up, that will be sent through the email system to everybody who's attended. And from Mary Lynham, very, very good, well presented and prepared, very moving that people are so attacked by imperialism managed to organise so well. Well done, UK friends, helping all this. Greetings from Mary Lynham, NSC member. So thank you very much, Mary, for your kind comments there. So I would thank you again, Fausto and Erika, for that very illuminating talk. And now we'll come closer to the UK, right in the UK, to Ruth speaking to us from Devon. So if I hand over to you now, Ruth Hancock. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and greetings, Fausto. That was yeah, very illuminating, and obviously we're working in very different systems. I'm here representing the UK branch of Via Campesina, the Landworkers Alliance, and we're a small-scale union, or a growing union of smaller scaled agroecological farmers, foresters, a few fisher folk, and fibre producers, but basically land workers. I apologise that I don't have a such a wonderful PowerPoint to present to you, but you're very welcome to visit our website, the Landworkers Alliance website, where you'll see that we've got lots of interesting things going on. And it's so interesting, and I think that really brings home to me the things that we're all doing in common, the things that we're commonly struggling with, perhaps from different directions. This push for industrialized agriculture, which do any of us who've looked at it can see it's not a sustainable model in so many ways, socially, environmentally, in terms of human health, nutrition, land justice. There's just so many issues with it. In fact, I was involved in a research project with a sister project that was going on in Nicaragua at the time, 3 years ago now, and we were looking at the barriers to agroecology. We spent a long time establishing what it was, what agroecology was, in terms of human nutrition, land use, social justice, all those sorts of things, and then looking at the barriers. If we've decided that it's a good thing, why are we not getting more of it? It sounds like there's parallels for you in terms of the industrialization, the ownership of land, who gets to own it, who gets to work on it. I'm not from a land working background, so I've managed to get to the point where I can now make a living from producing food for my local community. And for years that's been very sort of fringe activity. It's been something that you don't do. It's not like a standard job like going into being a mechanic or what have you. It's very difficult. Anyone in the UK and, well, Western Europe, anywhere probably will know that to get hold of land to grow food for your community is really quite a difficult thing to do, and then be able to make an economic return is another problem. So this how do we get land, how do we secure the right to continue looking after it properly, defend it against those forces that would take it from us? And with the whole COVID thing, is this really is a point, isn't this, is a point where we go one way or we go the other way? And I think the public feeling is with us in terms of, yes, we want good food, we want justice for farmers, we want good food for citizens, and most people would not argue with that, but they don't understand how, well, if we all want these things commonly, why is it being pushed this way? And people really need to understand the whole food system and food sovereignty and why it's not working. And it does feel, personally for myself, it does feel like we're at a point where suddenly people are going, oh, I see, yes, I'm concerned. Where is my food coming from? I've heard there's shortages. Can I buy my food from you? Whereas before it was oh, that would be a nice thing to do, a nice sort of, almost like a lifestyle idea. But now it's like, gosh, this really is a thing, isn't it? We're used to having endless piles of things in the supermarket, which of course we've extracted from the rest of the globe. We're very, well, not all of us, but many of us are very aware that we have been extracting, Western Europe has been extracting from the rest of the globe, and it's not just. And then we've been exporting all our pollution and our carbon, and I won't go on, because I think anybody who's watching this will understand these issues. They know what's going on. But I think it's coming to a point where it's becoming more apparent, even with the with the Black Lives Matters issue, it's saying, look what's happened, look what's all these crimes that have been going on for centuries and haven't been addressed because people didn't want to see, didn't want to know. So I think it really feels like a time where, you know, the Landworkers Alliance, we've had lots and lots of interest. People have been, well, kind of giving us money, saying we've established a solidarity pot to support farmers who, on a smaller scale in this country, what will very often happen is that if people can only get hold of a small patch of land, the return is often far better if you sell into high-end restaurants who may you know, be trading on the back of their local provenance. So a lot of people suddenly lost their markets to do that, and then there was this upsurge in interest in local food. And so thankfully a lot of people have been able to transition from one place to another, and we've had online webinars. I've been involved in a few where people are like, well, how do you extend your season? How do you keep growing all year round? What do you do? What do you sow now? You know, so we've had lots and lots of farmer to farmer exchange, not just on that subject, but how do you market locally? So it's so interesting, you know, hearing about what's going on in Nicaragua and seeing the parallels of your struggles. They're different, but this whole idea that, you know, the agroecology is about place, it's about soil, it's about people, it's about nutrition, it's about flexibility and resilience, all these things we know, but we see them here and we see them where you are, and this whole global peasant movement. And in our country, peasant has been a pejorative for such a long time. It's like, all peasants, you know, there's the sort of slightly dirty people down on the ground. And, you know, now hopefully peasants are elevated. We are, you know, we have become those important key workers, and, you know, our value and our knowledge is you know, has become, you know, hopefully become more respected on a society-wide scale, and let's hope it stays that way. It's not just, oh, that was nice, oh, and now it's all over and we can go back to normal. But, you know, I think we'd all agree we don't want to go back to normal, because normal was based on massive injustice to people and to the planet and to so many things. And, you know, even people leading normal lives a lot of them didn't want to do that. That was just what they were forced to do. There was a few of us who managed to escape to the countryside and do our thing, but it's been, you know, it's hard work. So, you know, with the Landworkers response to COVID, and how we've managed to focus on the short supply chain model rather than the, you know, the big farms and big packing stations, and then going from the packing stations to a distribution center, and then distribution center to a supermarket, and then you know, it's just so many chains. It's so fragile. It looks like a big robust system, but one of those chains breaks and then suddenly it doesn't work. And then previous to COVID we had Brexit, and just this nonsense idea that, oh, we don't want migrant labor coming here, you know, because we, you know, there's awful kind of resistance to migrant labor or immigrant labor, and then suddenly, who's going to pick all our vegetables, or who's going to pick our crops? It's like wasn't thought through. So I mean, it just brings up so many issues in terms of, well, where does your food come from? Who picks it? They're clearly not paid enough if you're buying it so cheaply. You know, all these issues. I mean, these are things that we've faced for a long time, but in some ways, of course, we wouldn't wish it to happen this way, because the consequences of COVID and the pandemic and the problems that we're facing, of course, they're falling hardest on the people who can least bear them. You know, so we have, you know, people, you know, migrating, or migrant labourers having to struggle their way home. There's all the most vulnerable people are becoming more vulnerable, which is clearly not just at all. So I think it's important that we totally look at the positives, and we totally look at how we can transform things, but we also need to, you know, understand that at the moment this is not a just transition. This is not how we would choose to do it. We can take the examples and the models and what's going, you know, what's good about what we do personally as peasant farmers, but also, you know, looking at the whole system, and that we really need to address these injustices so that, you know, the right to food in this country, there isn't a right to food. There's, you know, that we have a right to healthcare and we have a right to education, but we don't have a right to good, nutritious food. So, well, good, nutritious food surely is one half of healthcare anyway. You know, that's a given. But, you know, without good health and nutrition, you can't be educated. It's just, you know, it's just one massive piece of the puzzle that's just like, no, we're not supporting that. It's like, well, it just seems like, you know, madness to many of us. I'm sure it's not, you know, this isn't telling you anything you don't already know. So in terms of what land workers are doing, I mean, we've got an ongoing training program with this is, you could almost say it's like a consequence of us industrializing our food system so early and exporting all our or importing all our foods. We lost our peasant agriculture system. Everyone was encouraged to get bigger or get out. I went to a standard agricultural college back in the late 1980s, and there we were taught that soil is a substrate in which you stand up your plant roots and then you feed chemicals from a bag. That's basically the model that we were taught. And so to go against all that as a woman and from non-farming background, you know, you can imagine some of the conversations that I've had over the years. But now suddenly it's like, oh yes, soil science, soil life, you know, we're growing on contemporary sunlight. We're not just growing on fossil fuels, as in that's what we should be doing, but most of the time, you know, we're eating oil, aren't we? We're eating the products of the oil industry one way or another. It's just been slightly transformed into some calories which aren't actually doing an awful lot of people very much good. So there we have the situation now. I'm not exactly sure the figures are, but we've got as many health problems arising from an oversupply of the wrong kind of calories as we have from actual calorie deficit. You know, we've got, it's not that we don't even have enough food to feed ourselves, we've got the wrong food in the wrong places. So we're making ourselves ill with this food, and then, you know, we've got pharmaceutical industry, which is also the agrochemical industry, making us ill and then saying, here, buy this, you'll be better. So yeah, the land workers are trying to, you know, push forwards the cause of agroecology, and we're doing farmer to farmer training, and we're always moving towards more access to land, incubator farms. How do we get people started? Because of course there are no colleges of agroecology. We'd love to have one in this country. I have a trainee on my farm every year, and lots of other farmers have trainees on their farms, and we're trying to make a sort of more formalized system of training. But again, it's got to be specific to the trainee, it's got to be specific to the type of farming, to the region. So we are regionalised as a union. And then we have Scotland, Wales, and then England itself, I should say, is regionalised. So we have groups within the group of Landworkers Alliance. I mean, we're getting bigger. We're getting bigger, but we're nothing, you know, nothing as big as in some countries. But yeah, training and information, and in many ways, this whole being online business has been quite good, because we're all spread out in small farms all over the country, and then suddenly we could just get together in our living rooms and talk to each other about seed varieties. So in some ways, it's quite cool. But like I say, there's been some great things come out of this, and then there's been some terrible tragedies as well. So if we can keep this connectivity, this morning I'm also having to be a yoga teacher, and I was at a yoga class with a lady in Pune, you know, and it's like I would never be able to go to Pune to go to a yoga class, but then suddenly there she is, just so this connectivity is great in so many ways. Maybe this was the push we needed, because I think a lot of us are a little bit, oh, technology, oh my goodness, look at my hair, that kind of thing, which of course we get over. So yeah, we need to keep doing this. We need to keep communicating. We need to keep recognizing each other's strengths. And you know, my fingernails are actually quite clean. But yeah, recognizing each other's physical strengths, but also that supporting and seeing the commonalities and explaining the commonalities of our struggles, but also how amazing we are too. You know, it's so easy to get bogged down in the, oh, you know, the awfulness of it all. And of course, you know, climate change hasn't gone away. We were trying to do that too at the same time. And of course, but without social justice, we can't have climate justice. It's all feeding into the same thing, isn't it? So like this extractive model that takes everything up to those who already have far more than they need. And you know, that whole nonsense of a trickle-down economy, it's like, no, this is capillary action, isn't it? And that needs to be addressed. That needs to be recognized and addressed, and have these, you know, we the workers at the bottom producing the food, caring for each other's bodies, caring for each other's minds. This is the important work. This is you know, this is what we all need to do together. So yeah, I really hope that the Landworkers Alliance, and also, you know, in alliance with Via Campesina, it feels amazing to be so connected. You know, who knew that peasant farmers could be so well connected, and all our, you know, all our seeds going down into the soil, and all the roots going out and finding all the organic matter, and the roots of my plants are connected in, you know, by the little bits of rock and the water and everything through to the roots of the plants in Nicaragua. That's such an incredible network connected by our knowledge too. So fantastic. Viva.
Viva. Thank you so much, Ruth, and what a lovely note to end on, the idea of growth, of interconnectivity and sowing seeds. And hopefully it's meetings like this that are part of that seed delivery and growth, and that you know, may the Via Campesina continue to grow in strength, and also that those of us who are not land workers are actually recognizing that you are the future, and we really do need you. You are our key workers. There's so much in there that I think links it beautifully, and is such a generic message, that the control, as Fausto was saying, that's come from the top, the ownership of the big companies and the World Trade Organization, and the need to take back ownership and take back our land, as it were, and awareness, and think about our personal health and nutrition. Never has there been a really more important and crucial time to think about that. So thank you, Ruth, very much for that, and thank you for giving us so much to think about. Right, we've got quite a few questions. So I will, first one is to Ruth. Is there an agricultural workers union that agrees with your aims in the UK? Can you try to encourage, like Fausto was showing, an agricultural workers union, hopefully wanting to affiliate to the TUC, the Trade Union Congress, or that would try to do that? And that the Landworker Alliance makes itself known to the Labour Party left and insists on a programme for sustainable food production and consumption in the UK. And well done, NSC, for opening up this subject. So if we take that question first, just about the links with the TUC, Ruth, for the UK TUC, if we take that.
Yeah, I mean, we do. I didn't even go into the campaigning side of the Landworkers Alliance. So we are in discussion. We're in Westminster. We talked to DEFRA. There's the National Farmers Union, who represent much bigger farmers, landowners, the sort of the standard model of agribusiness. And we do have some links with them, because obviously we all are hoping that, you know, farming and food production is better recognised, but there's certainly not a union in the terms of workers' rights in the way that we as the Landworkers Alliance union are. So yes, I'm not sure. I think we have had some connection with unions, and I'm not sure with the TUC specifically, but yeah, we'd very much like to make stronger links, because you know, food work is not just farmers and then consumers. I mean, it is in my case because I sell direct to my customers, but there's so many food workers in between as well. It's that this is a transition, a just transition from the current model where you have all the producers and all the consumers, and then a very tight neck either through the supermarkets or the, you know, that model. So we need to break that out so that we have far more connections, and so connecting with other unions, food workers, totally. I think very similar.
Just tagged on to that, there's another question that links. Is the Agricultural Workers Union part of Unite? Is that?
I don't know about the Agricultural Workers Union. I'm not sure. Yes, I think they are a branch of Unite, but we're not affiliated with them as far as I know. I'd have to check out in our governance.
Yeah. Apparently they've got an agricultural workers section. So.
Yes, I think they deal with agricultural wages, which are basically the same as the minimum wage. So
of course.
There used to be a lot more teeth in you know, funnily enough, they used to have more teeth, and now they don't. But yeah, which is partly why we formed as a union to represent, you know, actual land workers as well as small scale producers like myself. Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth, and thank you to the questions. So we've got a question for Compañero Fausto. So what benefits have the rural workers and peasants in Nicaragua obtained from the FSLN government policies? It's from Francisco Dominguez. Oh, unmute. Can you unmute? Sorry.
I just need to finish translating the question real quick.
Sorry.
Entonces, ¿cuáles son los beneficios de los trabajadores del campo, los campesinos, desde el gobierno de la FSLN?
Muy bien. Nosotros desde el 2007, con el gobierno de Nicaragua, hemos tenido el beneficio número uno es el apoyo al trabajo en el campo.
So since 2007, our biggest benefit has been support for the work in the countryside.
Apoyo técnico.
This has been technical support.
Se han legalizado más de 22,000 kilómetros de territorio a los indígenas.
There's also been the legalization of more than 22,000 square kilometers of land for indigenous people.
Se le garantiza crédito a los campesinos.
There's also a guarantee of credit for peasants.
Y tenemos el día 23 de junio.
So June 23rd,
la otra semana,
which is next week,
el Frente Sandinista en el gobierno empieza la universidad en el campo en saludo al nacimiento del comandante Carlos Fonseca.
So the FSLN and the government is opening their peasant university, which is in recognition of the anniversary of the birth of Carlos Fonseca.
Y nosotros desde el movimiento campesino tenemos la legalidad también del gobierno en nuestro sistema de formación.
Another thing that we have is the peasant movement is that in our system of training, we have a legality in all of our schools, accreditation.
Y en esta crisis actual, tener una salud comunitaria eficiente.
And also in this current crisis, we have a very efficient community health system.
So I've got a question about probably specifically about the Nicaragua difficulties. Thank you from Eddie Richardson. Thank you for great presentations. Are there any plans for local growers to help them deal with water shortages and floods and climate change? And how do you get the message and cultural change to urban populations? And can we hear more about participation of indigenous cultures? I think the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign would like to add something to this answer. So, as well. Oh, sorry, can you unmute?
I'm just translating the question.
Oh, sorry, I've done it again.
Okay, I think I translated the three-part question.
Con el actual gobierno y toda la sociedad nicaragüense estamos preparados para lo que es los problemas de desastres naturales.
So both on behalf of peasant organizations, but also the government is preparing to confront a wide range of natural disasters.
Y también para prevenir el tema de la sequía.
And ways to prevent the effects of drought.
Con cosechas de agua.
And also the harvesting of rainwater.
Hay regiones que sí tienen más problemas.
There's some regions that have more problems.
Pero hay un plan siempre de apoyo a la crisis ambiental.
But there's also different plans to support the environmental crisis.
Con el tema de los pueblos originarios ha sido muy difícil, pero ya hay algunos avances.
The topic of indigenous peoples has been a difficult topic, but there have been many advances.
Nosotros tenemos una muy buena relación con los indígenas.
We have a very strong relationship with indigenous people.
Y tenemos que seguir trabajando este tema de unir al Caribe con el Pacífico de Nicaragua.
We have to continue working on this topic to unite the Caribbean region with the Pacific region.
Y eso es parte del trabajo que hacemos en la escuela.
This is part of the work that we do in our school.
Y la última pregunta era sobre
conexión con las poblaciones urbanas.
Ya. El tema de los urbanos. Hay hoy por los sábados, todos los sábados y los domingos en Nicaragua se promueven ferias.
So every Saturday and every Sunday throughout Nicaragua there are different farmers markets.
Que ahí lo que llega la gente urbana a comprar los productos, los campesinos y todo lo que hacen los artesanos.
That's when urban populations are connected to all of the peasant production as well as artisans.
Se ha avanzado mucho en lo que es el consumo responsable.
And here we've advanced a lot in what we call responsible consumption.
Necesitamos avanzar todavía más para unir al campesino con el consumidor.
We need to continue to work on this to be able to have even a better link between the peasant and the consumer.
Hay un ministerio de gobierno que se encarga de ese trabajo con nosotros.
There is a ministry of the government that works specifically on this work, along with organizations like
y hay muy buenos resultados.
And there's been very positive results
con los mercados campesinos.
With peasant markets.
Thank you very much. I don't know if the NSC wants to come in on that at all. Someone from the NSC wants to answer, but maybe we'll put that in the and there's just, I don't know if that was sort of fully answered there, but there's been a couple of questions about links with other countries, sort of congratulating on the webinar, but about the links between, so to Fausto, how Nicaragua is doing differently from the other Central American countries, and also is Alba connecting with the Caribbean countries, and is Cuba helping? So for just ask those questions as one. Thank you, Magda, Lanusa and Maria Lynham for those questions.
Con tu pregunta. Bueno, sobre la pregunta primera del tema de la agricultura, en el caso de Nicaragua, nosotros hay todo un trabajo con la producción agrícola en Nicaragua, que no tenemos ahora en este momento escasez de alimentos.
So the first question that was about agriculture and hunger. There's been so much work here in the agricultural system in Nicaragua that we're not living any sort of food scarcity or hunger.
Que iba a haber subieron los precios de los frijoles y entonces el gobierno puso su programa de abastecimiento para que los empresarios ricos no no hicieran esas cosas con la comida del pueblo.
So here recently, the price of beans increased, but the state quickly stepped in with its own storage of beans to make sure that the price of beans didn't skyrocket.
Hay estabilidad de precios en los alimentos.
All of the food prices are stable,
Sobre la pandemia,
specifically now with the pandemic.
desde el mes de enero, Nicaragua empezó con un plan de atender el tema de la epidemia que se venía.
So Nicaragua has had a plan since January in relation to the pandemic.
En los países de Centroamérica hay cuarentena
In the other countries of Central America, there's a quarantine.
y en algunos toque de queda.
And in others, there's also a,
Curfew.
a what?
Curfew, is it?
Curfew. Thank you, Julie.
Y además hay presos en El Salvador, hay presos en Honduras. Entonces el gobierno fue diferente, no hizo cuarentena, pero sí hizo brigadas de salud que iban casa por casa.
So in the cases of Honduras, in the case of El Salvador, there have been lots of people that have been put in jail, but the experience in Nicaragua has been completely different. There have been medical brigades that have been visiting house after house after house.
Hemos visitado el 90% de la población nicaragüense con brigadas de salud.
About 90% of Nicaraguan population has been visited with different health brigades.
Y nuestro sistema de salud ya está preparado para enfrentar la pandemia.
And our health system was ready has been ready for a long time to confront the pandemic.
No podíamos hacer cuarentena porque había una crisis que se nos produjo con el intento fallido del golpe del 2018.
We couldn't go to quarantine because there's already been a crisis that was provoked by the coup attempt of 2008.
El sistema se siguió produciendo y haciendo todos los trabajos normales en el país, pero atendiendo las normas del protocolo de salud.
So we've continued to produce food and keep active all these different sectors of the country, but at the same time practicing all of these important health measures.
No sé qué más.
Era de Alba y...
En el caso del Alba, después de que se derrotó el golpe que hubo en Bolivia y el debilitamiento en Ecuador, había un bajo el tema del Alba, debilitó.
So ever since the coup in Bolivia and the weakening of Ecuador, there's also been a weakening of Alba.
Y es la actual crisis que hay de la pandemia que ha vuelto a unir a los pueblos.
But it's been the actual crisis, the current crisis of the pandemic, that has allowed all the people to come together again.
Del Alba para poder trabajar los temas de salud.
To be able to work on this topic of health.
Y de producción de alimentos.
And also on food production.
Y entonces han habido varias reuniones ya del Alba con compañeros.
There's been a number of recent meetings of ALBA.
Con Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua.
With Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua.
Y se invitan a otros gobiernos progresistas para debatir el tema.
And other progressive governments are also invited to debate these topics.
Este es el gran momento para reactivar el ALBA.
This is our grand opportunity to reactivate ALBA.
Para unir a los pueblos, sobre todo por la agresión imperialista.
To unite our peoples against imperialist aggression.
Imagínense ustedes que los gringos han invertido, el imperio gringo ha invertido 19 millones de dólares para alimentar a la oposición.
So here, imagine, can you imagine that the U.S. government has invested $19 million in the Nicaraguan opposition?
Sin incluir lo que ha invertido en Venezuela y lo que invierte para atacar a Cuba.
That's not even mentioning all of the money that has been invested to overthrow Venezuela and Cuba.
Y aún así, Cuba es el ejemplo del tema de la salud con la brigada RIF, con la brigada que hizo de salud.
So despite all this, Cuba still continues to be our grand example with their Henry Reeves Medical Brigade.
Que vamos a pedir el premio Nobel a esa brigada de salud.
And we are now currently asking for the Nobel Peace Prize for this health brigade.
Venezuela tiene menos contagios que todo Sudamérica, los países de Sudamérica.
Venezuela has the lowest rate of people getting sick in all of South America.
Y en el caso de Nicaragua, aunque no hubo cuarentena, se mantiene la estabilidad en el país.
And here in Nicaragua, even though there was no quarantine, we've been able to maintain stability in the country.
Vamos a hacer de la crisis una gran oportunidad.
So we're going to take this crisis as a large opportunity.
Thank you very much for that. Can I thank everybody who sent in questions? I'm trying to group them so we can get through as many as possible in the time we've got. So, following on from the last comments, just got first of all a bit of information, and then I'm going to move on to a question. So the information's from Tim Oxton. For progress in rural societies, you may like to compare notes with the 6 federations of the Trópico de Cochabamba in Bolivia. These are agricultural unions who are at the heart of the resistance to Janine Áñez's de facto government. They have fertile land and they send food all over Bolivia. Most material about them is in Spanish. They own a radio station, Radio Cabasachun Coca, which now also broadcasts in English. And then so following on from that, there's a comment from Nicholas, from Nikki Hoskins, a really good webinar and a great subject to be highlighting now. Just wondered about the links to cooperatives and the cooperative movements in Nicaragua and the UK. And perhaps Ruth, I don't know if you're able to come in on that one about links between Nicaragua and the UK cooperative, any cooperative links, or indeed the NSC.
Yeah, I don't know specifically about cooperative links between Nicaragua and LWA. I think it's, as far as I know, it's more the general solidarity with La Via Campesina, but there may be some that I don't know about. Yeah.
Anything from Fausto on the links between cooperatives in the UK and Nicaragua?
En el caso de nosotros, el trabajo que ahora hacemos es el vínculo a través de lo que es Vía Campesina. Con los compañeros de Inglaterra hemos estado siempre conversando en los encuentros internacionales.
So what our experience here in the ACC in terms of in international spaces has been through La Via Campesina, and we always converse with our friends in England in the international gatherings.
Igual tenemos vínculos con la Confederación Paisán de Francia.
We also have links with the Peasant Confederation in France.
Con el movimiento cooperativo también del País Vasco.
We also have links with the cooperative movement in the Basque country.
Que la relación existe de trabajo.
So there's these different existing relationships.
Pero en el marco de lo que es Vía Campesina.
But this is all within the framework of La Via Campesina.
No es una relación con la Alianza Cooperativa Internacional.
It's not part of the International Cooperative Alliance.
Porque es más una alianza, es más una coordinación de trabajo, de formación, de intercambio.
It's mainly different ways that we coordinate work, training, and exchanges.
Porque hay otras experiencias inclusive del movimiento que la hacen en el marco del comercio justo, pero eso es otro tema.
So there are other kinds of exchanges that take place within the framework of fair trade, but this is another topic.
Bueno, para nosotros, esa es la relación con el movimiento campesino en Estados Unidos es muy importante.
For example, for us, our relationship with the peasant movement of the United States is very, very important.
Porque el movimiento campesino y cooperativo y sindical en América Latina es una ventaja.
The peasant and union movement here of Latin America is an advantage.
Pero hacer esto en Inglaterra y en Estados Unidos y en Francia, en otros países, es muy difícil.
But to organize this kind of movement in England or France or the United States is very difficult.
Porque el sistema capitalista no permite desarrollar el movimiento campesino.
Because the capitalist system does not allow for the development of a peasant.
Por eso para nosotros los compañeros campesinos de Europa son unos héroes.
So that's why for us, the members of the peasant movement of Europe are true heroes.
Y siempre compartimos la experiencia con ellos.
And we always are sharing our experiences with them.
Y ojalá pues vamos a seguir trabajando con ellos y con diferentes países, sobre todo con Inglaterra, que hasta ahora estamos trabajando más de cerca.
So, and we hope we will continue to be working with all these different countries, especially England, which we've been developing a closer relationship with more recently.
Thank you very much. We've reached our final time. There are so many questions, some fantastic questions there that unfortunately there just isn't time to answer. So hopefully we'll be able to compile those questions and look at them and provide answers via the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign website or through emails, because there's some really, really brilliant questions that I think lots of us would like to know the answers to. So thank you if you've submitted a question and it's been answered, and thank you and apologies if we haven't had time to address your question during this session. I found this the speakers entirely inspirational and very positive. So if I can just ask them 1 minute to just give a quick summary before we finish the meeting. First of all, from Fausto and Erica, and then from Ruth. And can I thank everybody who's joined us this afternoon for this webinar. Your presence has been greatly appreciated, as have your greetings and encouraging support. So just a final comment from our speakers. Thank you. Just one minute each.
Compañeros, vivimos un momento muy difícil en la actualidad.
So we're currently living through a very, very difficult moment.
¿Qué va a pasar el día después de la pandemia? No sabemos por ahora.
We still don't know what's going to happen when the pandemic is over.
Pero sí les puedo decir que después de la gripe española, mal llamada así,
But what I can say is that after the poorly named Spanish flu,
nacieron las consecuencias de la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
We saw the consequences of the Second World War.
¿Qué va a pasar después de esta pandemia?
What's going to happen after this pandemic?
No sabemos. Sin embargo, queremos hacer un plan de emergencia que es volver al campo.
So what's going to happen after this pandemic? We don't know, but nonetheless, we want to implement this emergency plan of returning to the country.
Y esa es la tarea que estamos trabajando desde Via Campesina.
This is the task that we're working on as la Via Campesina.
Hacer el mundo más habitable, un mundo más ambientalmente sostenible para evitar los problemas que nos dio el capitalismo en la actualidad.
So make a more livable and ecologically sustainable world to confront all of the problems created by capitalism.
El modelo no fue capaz de resolver el problema.
This model was not able to resolve our problems.
Vendrá otra forma de ver el capitalismo.
There will be another way of looking at capitalism.
Y cuidado, estamos en las puertas de un nuevo modo de transformación social similar o mejor que el socialismo.
So watch out, we're now at the gates of a new, different way of social formation that's similar or better than socialism.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure if you could hear it, there will be plenty of applause for your words. Thank you. And Ruth, if I could just ask you for a minute of your time to close your contribution.
Yes, thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic connecting with you all. I was slightly concerned about, what's my role, what's this all about, but it just feels like we're all pretty much about the same thing. I noticed one of the questions which I think is really, really important to address is about the question of urban and peri-urban agriculture, and that in terms of fresh food, human health, people wanting to carry on living in cities in this country. We have this culture of you get enough money and then you go and buy something nice in the countryside, which means of course for peasant farmers it's impossible to access the countryside to grow. But this is, peri-urban and urban is where we need to be producing food, because this is where the people are. And this is where people need jobs. So it's that kind of de-industrialization, a re-ruralization of our food culture without this, there's the whole idea that, oh, you want to take us back to the dark ages. Of course we don't. We want to, we have knowledge, we have so much knowledge and science. We're not anti-science, but we can take all this forward and do it well, not this awful poisoning, industrial. I have people actually saying, can I come and work on your farm for free? I don't know of any massive industrial agri-businesses where people turn up and say, oh, can I come and work on your farm for nothing? It's like people want to do it this way. I mean, of course, we should be paid properly for our food, of course, as producers, all the rest of it. But people want to do this work. They really want to feel part of their community, feed their community. It's the most, it's the most important job. so many young people. I mean, this is partly what Landworkers Alliance is about. So many young people want to do this work. And, you know, why should they not be able to? Why should they not be able to feed their community? So being part of this global network of so many people wanting to feed and nourish their community well. And, you know, at the urban level, it's not just about running away to the countryside and having a fantasy life. It's not that at all. It's about really being embedded in our land, literally embedded in our land and in our culture and in our food system. And we need to rebuild. We've broken our food system with industry, you know, and we've broken other people's food systems as well. You know, can't apologize enough for that. It wasn't just me. So yeah, the way we can work together and share knowledge with this technology, you know, obviously we're not against technology. Look at us all being incredibly modern. So we can take the best of it and the science and the knowledge and the understanding and take it forwards. And we don't need robots and we don't need GM. We need us, knowledge, skill, experience, sharing, all that stuff. And we can grow food together for each other. We can make a living at it. It's not, you know, it shouldn't be that difficult, but we know what stands in the way of it, and we can work together to say, not that, let's have this, let's do this good thing. And so La Via Campesina, Landworkers Alliance, all of us together, we can be this change that we want to see. I've said, you know, oh, there's no point trying, you know, don't give in to despair. That's what they want you to do. They want you to despair and give up hope. And I've been, you know, all of us have been doing this for years and years and years. And sometimes we think, oh, maybe there isn't. Oh, there is. We've got to keep going. We've got to keep growing food. We've got to keep feeding people. Otherwise they get really grumpy. All right, so let's just keep doing this.
And thank you so much, Ruth. You mentioned we're not going back to the Dark Ages. I think this afternoon you and Fausto and Erica have shown us the light and the way forward, how it needs to be. So thank you so much to our speakers. Can I thank Brittany Oakes at Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign for being the key worker with the technology this afternoon, and thank you to everybody who's joined us this afternoon for your contributions and your kind words and encouragement. And hopefully this may be the first webinar, but I hope it's the first of many more. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.